Welcome to the NFL Week 13. Guys, big week ahead of us. A lot of really good games. Let's do a quick recap of Week 12. It was not one of our better weeks. First real bad week in a long time, certainly this season. Typically at least go 500 on the weekend. It was a bad week overall, 1-4 in Week 12. I'm going to go through each of those games and really break those down quickly. But man, those are some tough beats. 12 weeks through the year, guys. I'm always transparent. I'll break down kind of where I've been. The first 6 weeks on fire. First 6 weeks, 26 picks. The last 6 weeks, 27 picks. In those first 6 weeks, 20-6 in the first 26 picks. I was 3-1, 5-2, 5-1, 3-0, 2-1, 2-1. The last 6 weeks, 27 picks, very pedestrian, 13-14. Mind you, the last week, again, this past week was really the first losing week in a very long time. In the last 6 weeks, I still went 3-2, 3-1. And then I had a string of 500 weeks, 2-2, 2-3, 2-2, and then 1-4. So overall, 33-20, still a good year. And really in the NFL, you try to have, a lot of as many hot weeks as you can, and then you're going to have weeks where you're just, treading water like I did, for 3 weeks in a row. Before this 1-4 week was 2-2, 2-3, 2-2, and you try to avoid those really bad weeks, but they're inevitable. You're going to have losing weeks. If you're a full-time handicapper, you're going to have losing months. What you don't want to have, obviously, is a losing year. But listen, when you're betting one sport, and it's only the NFL, and it's only 6 months of the year, you're gonna have losing weeks and a losing month. The NFL, remember, is by far the hardest sport to bet against the spread. It's the most bet sport. The market is super tight, razor thin lines. So I mean, it is freaking hard. First bad week in a year, that's fine. And again, over the last 27 picks, I mean, there was a few games in there. Yeah, I was on the wrong side. The one that comes to mind is definitely that Arizona game a few weeks ago against the Rams. I took the Rams, and Arizona was clearly the right side. But there were some of them where I was like, damn, I felt like I was on the right side, and it just didn't go our way. We were covering 80 to 90% of the game, and then at the end, kind of lost it. I've lost 3 overtime games in the last 2 weeks. Took the Broncos against the Raiders, and they lost in overtime. That was a tough beat. Took Seattle last week. They lost in overtime. Took Tampa last week. They lost in overtime. Just some tough beats. I heard one handicapper say once, if you the ones that that you're on the right side are the blowout wins. The rocking chair wins where you can just sit back, relax, and just enjoy the game. One that comes to mind was the New Orleans one earlier in the year against the Raiders, 24-0. It was an easy win, but he was saying, if the game's coming down to the last drive and it's a coin flip either way, those aren't good picks. And I'm like, bro, how hard, it's like I said, it's so hard in the NFL. More often than not, it does come down to the last possession in most cases, especially against the spread. It almost always comes down to the last couple. It's always a couple of plays here or there, right? So you try to make the best pick based on the information you have, and you hope it works out. But I'm not worried. Again, some of these picks were, last week, the only one I had right was the Giants and Cowboys on Thursday night. Even that one we had to backdoor cover on a late touchdown by the Giants, which never should have got there. They were up by, a touchdown at half or up 6 at half as a 10.5-point dog and had a backdoor cover. Brutal. The Cincinnati-Tennessee game. Now that game there, I did say the thing that worried me a little bit was that the Titans, they're exposed in their pass defense, and Cincinnati does like to pass. The Titans are also a team that they don't do well when they have to come from behind. They're better when they're ahead. So those things did worry me, and it did catch up to the Titans a little bit. But still, even in that game, the Titans had a chance. They had a late penalty on a freaking field goal, and then Cincinnati just had to kneel the ball out. That was a tough one. Tampa Bay and Cleveland was a heartbreaker. I mean, Tampa was up 17-10. under 2 minutes to go. Tom Brady has never lost a football game, went up 7 under 2 minutes to go. He was like 200 and something in 0, lost his first game, and it was like on a 4th and 12 play at the end of the game where the tight end for Cleveland made a crazy one-handed catch, and then they went in overtime and won. Like, just freaking so unlucky there. And then Vegas and Seattle. Seattle was up by a touchdown. They were leading most of that game, and Vegas came back and then won in overtime. By far the most frustrating one was the New England and Minnesota game. Took New England. I mean, I watched every snap of that game. If you watched that game on Thanksgiving, New England clearly should have won. They averaged like 7.5 yards per play. Minnesota like 5.2 yards per play. Another fraudulent win for the Minnesota Vikings. Really, I remember every drive in that game. Minnesota scored first. New England came back and scored. And then Minnesota threw an interception. New England got a field goal off of it. And then Minnesota got a field goal. It was 10-10. Then a great kickoff, and New England only could get a field goal on the next drive. And then Minnesota scored a touchdown, missed an extra point, and then New England went down at the end of the half and had to settle for another field goal. They come out in the second half, get another touchdown, then a kickoff return touchdown for Minnesota. The game was insane, but really, I can go on right to the end. But really, the difference in that game was a few things. One, 2 massive special teams errors by New England, a kickoff return touchdown for Minnesota, and they're running into the punter penalty where the defender just nicked the foot of the Minnesota punter, resulted in an automatic first down. Minnesota went on to score a touchdown, and that was the winning touchdown for the game. So those 2 special teams mistakes. Then they also had 5 penalties that resulted in first downs for Minnesota, questionable calls for some of them at best. And then New England had to settle for 4 field goals in the game when they were driving. Mac Jones threw for almost 400 yards in the game, had to settle for 4 field goals. They had the touchdown overturned by Hunter Henry, which was bullshit call. It was clearly a touchdown. And the refs just bailing Minnesota out. Like always, they get these calls. So a couple of special teams, the penalties, the overturned touchdown call. There was at one point Mac Jones's helmet almost got ripped off. It wasn't as bad as like the Ryan Fitzpatrick one from last year, but it was pretty bad. And the refs don't call that, and they call like a little ticky-tack face mask and we're going to touch Adam Thielen in the face. Just a complete mess of a game. I mean, New England Minnesota again, 9-2, not a good football team in my eyes, but that was a tough beat, and that's the way the last few weeks have gone for me, just not able to come through. Whatever. We're looking at week 13. I'm going to do a little bit different in this one. I'm just going to go down the board because again, the videos for me do best when I release them earlier in the week, like a Thursday, but I typically don't like making my bets until later in the week. So, I mean, I'm just going to go through all the games here, give you my quick opinion. If you want my official plays, guys, join Patreon. I will put up those plays later in the week when I make them. So let's go through the docket of games here. Thursday night football, Buffalo this game's probably already started by the time I uploaded it. Buffalo at New England. Buffalo's a 3.5 point favorite. I'm going to pass on this game. It's a tough one for me to bet because I was on New England last week. The way they lost, like I just said, was just so tough. A home divisional dog in prime time I love, and the way New England lost, I love to pick them again. But Buffalo and the way Buffalo's been playing the last month hasn't been great. So it all looks towards New England, but I think Buffalo is just a much better team than New England. And even at 3.5, I just don't like laying points in a road divisional game on prime time. But Buffalo, to me, just looks like the much better team. So if I was to play this game, I would take the Bills at minus 3.5. Next game, Cleveland at Houston. Cleveland's laying like 7.5 points. I'm not going to play this game. If I was to play, I'd just pick Houston at plus the points. Houston, is one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the league. But who's Cleveland to be laying 7.5 on the road? I understand this is Deshaun Watson's game, but who knows how he's going to play? He hasn't taken a snap in 2 years, so I have no idea how he's going to play. And Cleveland can't stop the run, and Houston, they just want to run. So it's hard to say what's going to happen. If Watson has a good game, Cleveland's a much better team, obviously. But I think this is like Houston's Super Bowl. I think they'll play a tough game. They'll be super motivated. Like I said, I lean to Houston at plus the points, and we'll see what happens. But I'm probably not gonna be playing this game. Denver and Baltimore. Listen, I'm gonna pass on this game. I can't take Denver. They average like 15 points a game, and I can't take Baltimore at lane 8.5 because they can't win by margin. They blow leads. So that's a pass. Green Bay and Chicago. Green Bay's a 3.5 point favorite. I don't think I'll be playing this game. If I was, I'd probably be taking Green Bay and laying the points. We don't know the quarterback situations in this game. I don't know if Fields is playing. I think Rodgers has a good chance of playing, and if he does play, I'll take Green Bay. Chicago's defense is a complete mess, and Justin Fields is just not healthy. So I would take the Packers in this game. Jacksonville and Detroit. Who knows? Probably Detroit. And it's essentially a pick'em game. Probably hit the Lions. The Jets at Minnesota. Minnesota is -3. Man, I can't stand Minnesota, as you guys know. But the Jets continued to not have a quarterback. Matt White is not good. He got to go against the worst defense last week in Chicago. If I'm playing this game, I'm probably taking Minnesota, but probably just take them on the money line because they're at home. The refs love them, and it's a 1 o'clock Kirk Cousins, so you probably take Minnesota. Although I like the Jets defense, but if they play too aggressive, the refs are going to throw flags because they love Minnesota. Very easy. Pittsburgh at Atlanta. Pittsburgh is about a 1 point favorite. It's essentially a pick'em game. This game's interesting. Atlanta is still somewhat alive in this division, but the rule of thumb here is you just don't pick Atlanta. They don't have a good defense. They're a one-dimensional offense. They're an annoying team. They're not good, and they're not reliable. They never were reliable, even when they were good. So I can't take Atlanta. If I'm playing this game, I'm taking Pittsburgh. I understand why people don't like Pittsburgh. Back-to-back road games, non-conference game, short week after the Monday night game. I understand situationally it's probably better for Atlanta, but Pittsburgh has a much better defense. Atlanta, all they want to do is run, and Pittsburgh has a pretty good rush defense. Atlanta's defense is not good, and although I think Pickett isn't a great quarterback, he's played against some pretty good defenses. He had to play against Philadelphia, he had to play against Indianapolis, he had to play against Cincinnati, he had to play against some pretty good defenses. Atlanta is a step down in defense. They got a better. I actually think Pittsburgh has a better quarterback. They have a better defense. They have a better coach. So I would take the Steelers here at essentially a pick'em. Next game is Tennessee and Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a 4.5 point favorite. This game is being steamed. This one opened at like 6.5 for Philly. Everyone's on Tennessee. Maybe it's a public play. I don't know if it's public money or sharp money or whatever, but it's been bet down, and I would take Tennessee here. I took them last week against Cincinnati. I had my concerns in that game because of the matchup, but they match up well against Philly. Tennessee is although their pass defense is not good, which is why they struggled against Cincinnati a little bit on defense. They do have a good rush defense, and Philadelphia is a run-first football team. Philly's Achilles heel is rush defense, and all Tennessee likes to do is run. So it is a good matchup for Tennessee. Plus, they're getting 4-5 points. Mike Vrabel's 21-7 against the spread when he's getting more than 3. This is like a classic Tennessee game on the road, catching points. These are games they usually do well in. Probably keep it close. So I would take Tennessee at plus the points. Washington at the Giants. Jesus, Washington's a 2.5 point favorite. I lean the Giants just because at some point Washington does this every year. They get hot. They go on a little streak. But you got to know when to jump off this team. I don't think they're a good football team. But the Giants are also decimated with injuries, and they can't score points. So I know it's difficult to pick the Giants. I lean the Giants, but I don't think I can play this game. Miami and San Francisco. San Francisco's a 4-point favorite. This might be one of the games of the week. It's a great matchup. Offensive Miami and the defensive San Francisco. Man, if I'm getting points, I take Miami. But San Francisco, this is just a very tough game. Maybe just take the Niners on the money line. This is a tough one, though. This will be the best offense I think the Niners have faced. But Miami's defense isn't great. And San Francisco, although their quarterback's bad, they have a lot of weapons on offense. Cross-country trip, non-conference game. Lean to San Francisco, but I'd probably just take them on the money line. because with the points, I probably take Miami with the points, San Francisco on the money line. I think this is a close game. Could be field goal either way. Seattle at the Rams. Seattle's laying 7 on the road. 7. Well, the Rams, they've thrown in the towel. We know they're done. They're not going anywhere at this point. But man, home divisional game, 7 points. Seattle is a team you like to play as a dog, not so much as a favorite laying these many points. It's a tough one. I think I get why you would like the Rams here, but Seattle, I mean, they're just so much better. And the Rams are just, it's whether or not the Rams have given up. They've clearly, Stafford's not playing, Donald's not playing. They've lost all their guys. You think they have some pride. I would lean to Rams plus the points, but I can't play this game. It's just too many. I can't take Seattle at -7, and it's so hard to take the Rams at this point at all. Next game, Kansas City at Cincinnati. Kansas City's a 2-point favorite. I like Kansas City in this game. This one, again, could go either way. Definitely a double revenge game. Since he not beat them in the season last year, and they also beat them in the AFC Championship. Defenses are pretty much the same. Kansas City has a much better offense. They've had a tougher schedule. Cincinnati, although they've been hot, they haven't really played anybody. They're beating up on teams who have worse records than they do, except maybe Tennessee last week. They haven't beaten great teams. This is a step up in class, and Kansas City will be ready for this game. So I do like the Chiefs in this spot. The Chargers, at Vegas. This game opened up like Chargers -3. It's been steamed to like the Raiders -1 at this point. A lot of Raider money coming in. I can see why. Again, good matchup for the Raiders. They like to run the ball. Josh Jacobs is having a good season, and the Chargers continue to have no rush defense. I expect the Raiders to put up a lot of points because I think they'll be able to run the ball instead of the play action. The Chargers can also put up a lot of points because the Raiders' defense isn't good. I do like the Raiders in this game because they are good as a home dog. Very good as a home dog. They do very well. You take the Raiders when you're getting points, not when you're laying points. This game, whatever. It's going to be a pick 'em, but it should be a good game. This will be a rematch, too, of last year's last game of the season. It was a crazy game in Vegas. The Chargers came out on top. I just like Vegas in this spot. Maybe they get hot again like they did last year towards the end of the season. Just look at the injury report for the Chargers. Again, missing a lot of guys. If Mike Williams doesn't go in this game, I just don't know, how the Chargers are going to stop the run of the Raiders. So I do like Vegas in this game, lean towards the Raiders. That's pretty much it. Indy and Dallas. Dallas is 10.5-point favorite. It's a lot of points. People usually like taking Indy when you're getting points. You fade them when you're laying points. So maybe take Indy plus 10.5. But Dallas, I mean, they're capable of blowing out teams. So I'll be passing on this game. There it is, guys. All the games aside from I'm not talking about the Monday Night Football game. Some passes, some leans, some likes. Again, follow on the Patreon to get my official picks later in the week. And good luck, guys. Week 13. We're due for a big week here. I will have a few more big weeks before the season is over. Like, subscribe, comment. Good luck in week 13.